My 2000 Honda Shadow VT600 motorcycle isn't a show bike, but I think it's pretty special. Let me walk you around it and tell you about it. I bought the bike in 2007 from a friend who had it only 2 months. He had bought it as one of a pair, owned by a couple who had visions of touring the U.S. and Canada, and who in fact had gone from South Carolina to Canada, the husband riding this 2000 Shadow 600 and his wife riding a 96 Shadow 600. They decided after returning from this trip that they should get a Goldwing and ride together. After my friend bought the pair, he made a similar decision to buy a larger, more powerful Honda Magna. He sold the two Shadows to me. I sold the 96 to my son. It had 7,000 miles on it, and this 2000 became my bike with only 4,000 miles. It was practically brand new. In a while, I'll tell you how many miles it has now. First, let me tell you what I've done to the bike to customize it for my kind of riding. This was my first motorcycle, and it's my only one and probably will be. Discounting my riding a dirt bike about 100 yards in the 1970s, I had never really ridden a motorcycle, but I took to it immediately. Within a year, I sold my golf clubs, and within another year, I sold my boat. Motorcycling would be my passion for good. I was 56 years old. Early on, I decided I wanted to ride coast to coast and border to border of America on this bike. I read articles in motorcycle magazines in which some authors pontificated that the Shadow was a starter bike, and others said it wasn't meant for grown men. I'm 6'1" and weigh 240. I didn't put any stock in these writers. Around 2,000 miles or so on the bike, I took an intermediate motorcycle riding course at a local technical college and then took the DMV motorcycle endorsement test through that course, passing handily. Then I started customizing my bike for me. In 2011, when not all the customizing had been done, this motorcycle was featured in the Reader's Rides section of Motorcycle Cruiser magazine, the May issue. The heart of my customizations is an expanded gas tank. The Shadow, through all its production years, came with a 2.91-gallon tank, which includes the 0.9-gallon lower portion of the tank identified as reserve. I quickly discovered that even getting about 55 miles per gallon on average, I could ride only about 115 miles before having to turn to reserve, and then I got another 35 miles or so before the tank would be dry. Since I intended to ride long distances, I would need more range. I found a business in West Virginia called Outlaw Iron Customs, which would expand the tank. They cut it from front to back on each side of the filler tube and welded in a strip of steel about 1 inch wide on each side. That increased the capacity about a gallon. Since it's side-to-side enlargement, the extra capacity is distributed between the top part of the tank and the bottom or reserve part. I now get about 155 miles before having to turn to reserve, and on reserve I get another 65 miles or so, meaning I can get about 220 or 30 miles to a tank if I run it dry. Of course, no one wants to do this, but I found this out by carrying a gallon can of gas along with me and riding until the tank was bone dry. The 1-gallon can would be carried later on my first trip from the east to the west coast. When the tank came back from West Virginia, I took it to Bryan's Custom Paint in Easley, South Carolina, near my home. They painted the tank, including the tank design, which I wanted patterned on various commercially available decals or stickers combining an eagle and the American flag. Another major customization was the addition of a windshield. I shopped around, and though Memphis Shades was perhaps the most well-known supplier, I went with one by National Cycles, nationalcycles.com, by the way, which was made specifically for this motorcycle. I couldn't have been happier. Riding across the U.S. hundreds of miles a day through bug-infested farmlands, along roads where other vehicles throw up grit, and then occasional assaults of rain, a windshield is a must. The word justice on the windshield is the name of the bike. When I bought this Shadow, I was a summary court judge in South Carolina, a magistrate. Justice seemed a fitting name, and it lends itself nicely to the decorative theme of the bike. A third customization was the replacement of the stock foot controls with forward controls to accommodate my long frame. I considered Maypams, but found them too expensive. I located a set made by Rhizoma, an Italian company. These forward controls were discontinued when I found them, and I got a good price. And later, when my ship came in, on the off chance that I might have a problem with these controls in the future, I bought some Maypams to keep in reserve. I haven't needed them. Along with forward controls, Long Trip Comfort made replacement of the seat recommended. Not absolutely necessary, mind you, for the stock seat is quite good, but I bought a Mustang seat and installed it and realized the improvement right away. Mustang didn't make a driver backrest for this seat, but I located a company in northern Ohio that did. It necessitated modifying the seat as well as attaching the backrest. I shipped the seat off to them, and what I got back was a superior piece of hardware and very large, just what I needed for riding days of several hundred miles at a stretch. And it matches the seat perfectly. The stock handlebars are very good, but for my large frame, I found that not only did I need extra risers, about 1.5 inches, but a set of mini-ape handlebars as a replacement. The offset is about 8 inches. That enables me to get my forearms horizontal when traveling. I've never understood how someone can ride more than a mile with their arms stretched up high on ape hangers or with their whole frame leaned over, forcing them to cock their necks up just to be able to see where they're going. A cruiser should enable the rider to sit upright, stretch out his legs, settle his arms comfortably on the handlebars, and relax. With a combination of handlebar tweaking, windshield, seat upgrade with backrest, and forward controls, I was fixed to go the distance. Obviously, one of the additions to the bike that made traveling easier was the hard saddlebags and trunk. Prior to getting these, I had an assortment of removable soft bags, tail bags, and travel packs, but I always planned on putting on hard bags. The side bags came first for monetary reasons, then the trunk later. You'll probably recognize them as being made by Leatherlike. That's LeatherLyke.com. Leatherlike makes 2 styles for this particular motorcycle, a traditional studded style and this contemporary style. Even though the studded style would have coordinated with my seat, I wanted to avoid overdoing studs and conchos. As I have discovered also through my research, conchos often rust. I also found that the slanted horizontal channels on the bags and trunk enabled me to design strips of decoration that coordinate with the tank in the patriotic theme. I used CorelDRAW, a color printer, and a laminating machine to make the strips, and mounted them with small brass screws and nuts. Installing the trunk made it necessary to remove the sissy bar, but the trunk has its own passenger backrest built in. Several small additions to the bike include a power connection for a battery tender battery charger, which can also supply power for other accessories, Kiriakin handlebar grips, a throttle lock, a USB power supply charger, which can keep my iPhone supplied with power when on a mount on the middle of the handlebars, a clock and thermometer located on either side of the handlebars, an eagle fender decoration, a custom air cleaner cover, also with the eagle design, a license plate lock box, which I used to keep my registration and spare saddlebag keys, and there may be a few other things I can't even remember that are on the bike. For a couple of years, I had a set of driving lights on the front, but they drew too much power and actually melted a wire or two. Today's LEDs would not give me the same problem, but I've moved on from the idea. Now, among all these things I've done to the bike, you may have realized I've said nothing about the motor, pipes, drivetrain, etc. That's because I haven't done anything to them. Friends tried to get me to consider changing the air filter and drilling out the jets. Nope. They said get third-party pipes. Nope. They said the only way to live with a four-speed transmission is to change the sprockets and chains so as to get more power on the upper end. While occasionally I think I'd like that, it's not necessary, so nope. I'm not messing with near perfection. Honda knew what it was doing when it designed the Shadow 600. I don't just live with it, I celebrate it. I've had this bike since March 2007. As of the making of this video, that's 12.5 years. Oh, now you can look at the odometer. That's not 37,000. It's 137,000 miles. The motor has not been overhauled. The valves were checked about 75,000 miles and needed only slight adjustment. I ride all year long, every week, sometimes every day. I fulfilled that coast-to-coast and border-to-border goal, and I've been from the East Coast to L.A., the Pacific Coast Highway, San Francisco, twice. I've never trailered the bike anywhere I was going, except to the shop. If I'm going there, I ride there. I change the oil or have it changed every 3,000 to 4,000 miles, and I have the bike full serviced at my local power sports shop every once in a while. I take care of it. It takes care of me. Justice is garage kept, except when I'm on a trip and it sits out in the glorious moonlight of a Texas town, a desert village, or a Motel 6 somewhere in the U.S. Even then, I sometimes use a cover which rides along with my rain suit in the left hard bag. Starter bike? Not really. Not made for a full-grown man? Nonsense. True, the motor is relatively small. It's a 600 as compared to the Honda 750, the 1100, the 1300, and very big machines that sport 1800 cc's, but with the exception of a few places on the high plains of New Mexico, where in thin air and on 6% grades I struggled to maintain speed when fully loaded on a trip, I have otherwise not been disappointed in this motorcycle's performance. And you can't complain about 50 to 55 miles per gallon. That's my bike, Justice. Oh, she just told me that's enough about her to take her for a ride. I never tell the lady no.